And welcome in everyone to this week's episode of Craze's Corner. Just going to be me today. Will and Jeff couldn't make it, but I got a good show for you guys. I got 4 guys in Dynasty that you should be trading for, one at each position: quarterback, wide receiver, running back, and tight end. And this is going to be for a variety of teams. Whether you're, rebuilding, I got a couple guys you can try and acquire now, maybe trade away your older pieces to get. And then I got some guys for the teams that are trying to compete this year, guys that you can add to your roster that maybe will have more impact in your championship run than you have to pay for them. So I got 4 guys for you. So hopefully you guys can learn something, try and get these guys on your roster. Dynasty construction really all depends on, you have to be able to analyze your team. You have to be able to say, okay, this year I am one of the teams that can make the playoffs, or this year, maybe I'm not one of those teams that can make the playoffs. Maybe I'm actually playing for next year. In Dynasty, you don't want to play for 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road because that's extremely hard to predict. But maybe you look at your team, you're like, okay, I'm a bottom 6 team. I'm not going to make the playoffs. If I can trade away a win now player and either get some more picks or get one of these younger guys that I'm going to talk about today, and just kind of try and balance out your ability to win in your window. Every team's got a different window. I got a team that won 3 back-to-back championships. Last year, I did not win championship, made the playoffs, but didn't win it all. So this year, my team, I am one of the bottom teams, but I'm trading away, those guys like Alvin Kamara. I'm trying to get rid of those older guys, bring in some youth, Travion Henderson, guys like that. It's always a good idea to look at the teams in your league and kind of look at each team and determine, do I think that they're a top team? Should they be looking to add, a competitive piece? Are they maybe rebuilding? And if you're looking at a rebuilding team and you're trying to trade with them, maybe you're not taking their younger guys away from them. Maybe you need to go to one of the competing teams and try and acquire their younger players and give them your win now pieces to kind of make the trade make sense for both teams so that you can get value. Otherwise, you might end up overpaying. So I'm going to start off at the quarterback position. Quarterback, whether you're playing Superflex or one quarterback, and it does change it a little bit, but a guy that I like coming off of his best game of the season so far against the Ravens is CJ Stroud, coming off the bye week. The Texans here, they looked really good against a bad Ravens defense, but CJ Stroud overall this season so far, last season, really hasn't lived up to that rookie expectations that we saw where he had a fantastic rookie year. One of the major issues that the Texans have right now is that, the wide receiver group is Nico Collins and some younger guys, and they got Christian Kirk there, but their offensive line has been terrible, and CJ Stroud really just hasn't looked quite as comfortable as he had in his rookie year. But I think that CJ Stroud is and has shown to be a capable quarterback. I think that he will have, in especially Superflex, where you're not trying to only start, you're trying to get a top 5 guy. I don't think CJ Stroud is that because he doesn't run enough in the NFL, but I think you're going to get a guy who, can be relevant, whether he's in that 8 to 15 range, which in Superflex is super valuable. So if you can go a guy who's only 24 years old, if I'm not mistaken, go out and get him, a guy who can help you a little bit this year. If you're in Superflex, you could definitely be starting him down the stretch when he's got some good matchups. But if you're not really competing this year, he's a guy who you can add to your team that I think will make a big impact next year, especially just due to the fact that they should be able to upgrade their offensive line over the offseason, and that'll help him. Maybe they bring in a weapon, or their young weapons continue to develop in, maybe it's Noel or Higgins. One of those guys kind of breaks out, and then they really have a strong number 2 in that offense. So I think that he's a guy that maybe doesn't cost as much as he once did. If he's an owner has him and an owner's competing, he might be a little, reluctant to go into the season or to go into the playoffs with CJ Stroud. Maybe you can try and pair an older guy to go and get him. Next guy I want to talk about, a running back. This one is definitely for competing teams. If you're not competing, you should be trying to trade this guy away, and that's Derrick Henry. Looking at the Ravens, they've been without Lamar Jackson, and it's been disappointing. Against the Cleveland Browns, it was a disappointing game. He had an okay game against the Rams. He had 122 yards on the ground. Lamar Jackson will be back after the bye, and I think that'll open things up for this offense. This team has to start winning, and their defense is not great. They're dealing with a bunch of injuries on both sides of the ball, but especially the defense right now. So teams are going to be putting up points against the Ravens, and the Ravens are going to be putting up points to keep up with them once Lamar Jackson's back. And Derrick Henry is a goal line machine. We saw it last week. They gave Mark Andrews 2 QB sneaks, and it didn't work. Then you got to give the ball to Derrick Henry, and I think that Baltimore Ravens are going to do that. So if you're a competing team, this is a guy you can probably get, at this point for a rebuilding team. Maybe you can offer a second-round pick. If you're competing, it'll be a late second-round pick, or you can offer a young running back, someone like that who, you're going to, who's not going to really help you win this year, but Derrick Henry definitely can. If you look at down the stretch, he's got still a game against Miami, one of the worst rushing defenses in the league, and he's got 2 games against Cincinnati, and one of those is the first week of most people's playoffs. So if you can get Derrick Henry against Cincinnati, one of the worst defenses in the league, that could definitely be a 20, 30-plus point game and help you win your first week of the playoffs. So Derrick Henry, to me, is a guy that makes a lot of sense if you can go out and acquire him for not, you're not giving up 2 first-round picks to get Derrick Henry anymore, and I think most people are aware of that, especially if he's on a rebuilding team. Any smart manager should be looking to move him to get younger or to get more picks. So definitely, I like Derrick Henry. If you can go and acquire him, the entire Ravens offense should take a step forward with Lamar Jackson back, and they have to put up points to win games, and they need to win games if they want to be in the playoffs, which the Ravens do. And we're going to go to wide receiver. Wide receiver, to me, this guy, you can trade for him if you're rebuilding, because I like him as a talent. He's still young. I like him as a future asset as well, 26 years old. But if you're competing this year, I think that he's in a position where, looking at his schedule and looking at what the team has to do, it's really him that stands out to me, and that's going to be Jaylen Waddle. Looking at Jaylen Waddle, last week against the Chargers, 6 for 95, and against the Panthers, 6 for 110 and a touchdown. Tyreek Hill is out, so that definitely helps him, be the number one for this offense. Darren Waller is also there, but Jaylen Waddle is, a really, really talented wide receiver. He set the rookie record when he was a rookie for most receptions. He's a guy that should be very involved in this offense, and if they want to, succeed, Tua's job's on the line, McDaniel's job's on the line, and I think that this is a guy who they have to make sure they're running the offense through because he is very talented. He also gets to play the Bengals in the second round of the playoffs. Extremely good matchup there. If you're looking at into the playoffs, he can help you, but when you're looking at guys that next year, what does this Dolphins team look like? Right now, you got Achane, and you got Jaylen Waddle, and those are the only 2 guys that I think for sure are definitely going to be there. Tyreek Hill with the injury, we'll see if he gets back. Not 100% sure if he'll be a Dolphin. Maybe he will. Tua, if this team doesn't turn around, is Tua going to be, the future plan of whatever new coach they bring in? Because if this team doesn't turn around, McDaniels is going to be gone. But I think that Jaylen Waddle he's talented enough to be a wide receiver 1 in the league, and I think that he could definitely get the opportunity for the rest of this year. He will, and into next year. So I think he's a guy that maybe you can go and get because, he doesn't really have that name value he had as a rookie anymore. And I think that he's a guy that maybe some people are like, okay, he's Jaylen Waddle, he's okay, but they want a bigger name. Maybe you can turn an A.J. Brown into Jaylen Waddle with some sort of picks coming back with Jaylen Waddle and really capitalize on name value versus Waddle, who I don't think really carries that same weight if you were to look at guys like that. So I like Waddle a lot for rebuilding teams because he's only 26, and I think that he's going to get, opportunity to be a wide receiver 1 in the future. And then this year, because he's got a couple good matchups, that the Jets, the Saints, the Dolphins defense is really bad, so offense has to throw the ball to score points. And this whole dink and dunk behind the line of scrimmage with Achane, with Washington, it just isn't really working for them, so they have to push the ball, and Waddle is the guy that they can do that with. So I love Jaylen Waddle as a trade for candidate for rebuilding or competitive teams. And then my tight end, I think this is more for rebuilding teams because I don't know necessarily how big of an impact he's going to have. This year, he just outsnapped Cole Kmet, and that's Colston Loveland with the Chicago Bears. You're looking at a tight end who was a top 10 pick. I think that's extremely important to look at here when you're when you're analyzing him, he hasn't really done much. He's had some injuries, but he's also playing, now ahead of Cole Kmet this past week. He had more snaps. But DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, they have Zacchaeus on the field, and they're running really well with DeAndre Swift. So you're looking at an offense that already has a lot of weapons. So it really, no one was, at least I wasn't expecting him to come in and just say, okay, he's getting 7 targets a game. That really wasn't in the cards for the Chicago Bears offense. Caleb Williams has looked better this year, which is great for Loveland's future dynasty value. And I think being tied to a young quarterback on a team that has a great wide receiver in Rome Odunze, who's definitely going to be with this team going forward, Luther Burden, this offense should be good. They've invested in the offensive line, so they'll be able to give Caleb Williams time to make decisions. I think that Loveland is talented, only 21 years old, and if he's on a competitive team, because he could have been going in the late first, or maybe early second, but if he's on a competitive team right now, and you can turn an older wide receiver, maybe you have like a Darren Waller, and you can capitalize on Darren Waller and turn him into Colston Loveland or something along those lines, where you get a guy who is currently going to be able to help that team a little bit better. You can acquire a guy who can definitely help you next year. He was a top 10 pick. The Chicago Bears have a plan for him. I just didn't necessarily think it was going to be this year, and so far it hasn't been. But we'll see going forward. He could even be able to help you down the line, but I think I would more try to acquire Colston Loveland if you're trying to get a rebuild going. So there we go. 4 players to add to your team, depending on which aspect of Dynasty football you're in. Are you rebuilding? Are you trying to compete for a championship this year? Let me know in the comments. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and make sure to stay tuned for next week. Will and Jeff will be back with me, and we'll be discussing guys that maybe you want to try and move on from if you're a Dynasty team, and we'll come from both perspectives, rebuilding and if you're competing, some guys that maybe you try and capitalize on their current value. See you guys again next week. Thank you.